Welcome to Digital Dominators, the podcast that helps small business owners grow their confidence, sharpen their digital skills, and actually enjoy showing up online. I'm Sooz, your host, tech coach, and digital cheerleader, and every week I chat with brilliant experts to bring you practical tips, smart strategies, and the tools and tech to make business easier. From social media marketing to websites, content to confidence, AI to automation, we're breaking it down into simple steps you can actually use. If you're ready to make things simpler and more successful in your digital world, you're in the right place. Let's get stuck in. Welcome back to Digital Dominators, the podcast where we explore the strategies, stories, and smart tech that helps you build a business that stands out and stays true to you. In today's episode, we're talking about something that's never been more important or more under threat. With the rise of AI-generated everything, blogs, captions, emails, even podcast scripts, it's never been easier to let the robots do the writing. But here's the thing, if your voice disappears from your content, so does your power. And that's exactly what today's guest is here to remind us. Rebecca Mackay-Miller is a thought partner and brand sense maker and the founder of Block and Rose. She works with multifaceted women to streamline their personal brands and share all the things they do with one voice. She's also the creator of The Art of Figuring Shit Out, a refreshingly honest Substack that unpacks the messy middle of modern business, creativity, and identities. Rebecca believes your voice is your brand's most powerful asset, and outsourcing it, especially to AI, without intention or awareness is a fast track to sounding like everyone else. In this episode, we're talking about why your voice still matters, how to keep it present in a world of automation, and why no amount of clever prompts can replace the real you. So let's get into it. Hi, Rebecca.
Hello.
Hi, thanks
so much for
joining
having me
today.
here.
It's great to have you on. So what I like to ask the guests to do is to reintroduce themselves and tell us in your own words how you got to where you are today and creating this most powerful topic that we're going to talk about, having your own voice and being true to yourself in the world of AI.
Thank you for having me. As you said, I'm a brand sense maker and thought partner. I've always worked so what that means essentially, I work with multifaceted, often multi-hyphenate women who have many strings to their bow and often find that they don't know how to talk about what they do. They don't know how to make their voice, their opinions, their introductions work across everything. I essentially work with them to enable them to become known for their ideas, the way they think, their opinions, as opposed to the individual deliverables, even when they're multi-hyphenates and without having to niche. My journey here has been really natural, really organic. I've always worked in marketing, always the softer end of marketing, always brand and storytelling. And my last real job, I guess, before I launched my own thing, I was managing director of a word of mouth marketing agency. And this was pre-influencer marketing, really. And the biggest thing that we had to do every day was try and challenge. And we were working with big brands, big global brands. And our biggest challenge was trying to get them to let go of the advertising spiel and actually understand how real humans spoke to each other, because our game was getting real people to have real conversations about the products they were using in their home. Often the brands wanted us to be sharing all these sort of advertising snappy one-liners that have been approved by legal and gone through all these sort of different iterations. And no one speaks like that in real life. So this was our kind of biggest challenge, like how to actually find space within marketing for real people's voices to come through. And I had this colleague who always used to say that if a person spoke to you in real life like advertising does, you'd probably punch them in the face, right? Because it's really rude, really shouty and really abrupt and aggressive. My sense is that AI has become the today equivalent, except that instead of offending you, it's boring us. And I think, and there are so many examples, you don't have to spend very long on LinkedIn or Instagram to just see post after post that sounds the same. And these are often really brilliant businesses, really brilliant women who actually are complex and have so many interesting depths and ideas and beliefs and opinions that are being diluted in the name of, sometimes it's efficiency, often I think it's fear, and really often it's just feeling like those beautiful opinions don't have a place in the world that they're in. I was speaking to a woman this week who was saying, brilliant woman, so accomplished, exited founder, achieved so much. And she has 2 or 3 sort of core things that she does. And one thing is over here, and this is in the consulting world, and she's charging hundreds of pounds an hour. And then over here, she's teaching similar thing essentially to kids and charging £30 an hour, but feeling like she couldn't bring that into the corporate space because it would undermine her expertise. And I find it really sad. And I just think that actually we live in a world where we have never seen, like, content has never been so homogenized. And really, as you said in your intro, like, it is more important than ever that we bring our humanness and to the fore. And a huge part of that, I think, is having the confidence to figure out what that is in the first place. Because actually often, especially those of us that come up through a corporate ladder, essentially, and that's where we start our careers, we're taught not to bring that to the, oh, don't be yourself. You have to fill this very professional image and fit this mold. And it's hard to break out of that. And I think a lot of business owners find themselves, even though they've escaped the corporate world, still find themselves kind of caught in that trap. So my work has evolved naturally, I think, over the years to really harness that concept, that sort of thing that we did in word of mouth, of sort of finding the humour way to talk about things, a real way to talk about things, and I guess, streamlining and channeling that into individual business owners' sort of strategy, but and identity. It's all about kind of embracing that sense of your own identity that enables you to safely and confidently, with conviction, go and take that out to your content and to your marketing.
There's so much to that I want to kind of go into a little bit more. And I think the first thing I want to raise is really around that change from corporate into setting up your own business and losing yourself within that business space, and then finding who you are. You set up your own company to solve a problem, but then not really knowing how to communicate that effectively, really. And then where do you brand yourself as part of that? Because you've had to brand yourself as somebody else's business before. So not really using your own voice to communicate that authentically. But the efficiency aspect is the biggest part. We're so time poor. So AI has been a game changer for people. So let's start with, how do we find out, first of all, what our identity is? What are some strategies that we can go through to work out how to find our own voice?
Yeah, and I think this is such a huge one. And I experienced it myself. I was managing director of a company. I was made pregnant when I was redundant. To be fair, they didn't know. But still, the process of it was the same, of kind of finding myself in this position of being like, well, can't get another job now because I'm about to have a baby. What do I do? And the sort of the what came fairly easily after a little messy middle part. The what came quite easily, but the who, there was the imposter syndrome, when I look back now, was real. And I really felt like I had to call myself the sort of the corporate terms. I was a brand strategist. That's what I did because that had weight in the corporate world, but it never felt right. And so I was sort of trying to hide, I guess, behind the sort of the corporate frameworks that had kept me safe all those years. And I was never shy, I spoke at Marketing Week. I used to speak on stages. That was fine, but it was someone else's voice. I'd never been in a position where I needed to find mine. And it's a real shredding. And I think that's the best way. It's a real shredding, and it never ends. I have clients that sort of almost quite religiously come back to me every 2 or 3 years because we do some great work. And then 2 years later, they're like, I've outgrown that now. There's this whole other space that I now need to process. But where does it start? What are the first strategies? Whenever I begin working with clients, we almost leave like the what they do, the business part, to the side for the first few weeks. And we really focus on them. What do they believe? What's true to them? What philosophies do they have about work or life or the world? What are their hot takes and opinions that sort of feel intuitively really right to them, but don't quite feel ready to kind of get out into the world? And we create space for all of those. And really, I've got a Miro board, and quite often in these sessions, there'll be 50 post-it notes in there of just thoughts, because once you open those gates and you allow yourself to actually freely share what's inside, it just goes crazy. It's like a purge. And so we have this sort of huge space of all these different post-its and ideas and beliefs. And we just begin to organize them. And really, it's a process of distillation. We look at the groups and the themes. And then over the course of the session, we sort of streamline these groups and these beliefs, these themes into a narrative that essentially underpins why you do business the way you do. And it begins quite broadly, you know, maybe societal beliefs or beliefs about humanity or the universe even. And then it ladders down to sort of perhaps individuals, industries, cultures, and eventually led us down to sort of what you do and then your clients. And it just creates this really beautiful narrative that is suddenly like oh, okay, you know, that is it. That is why I do it. And that is what I believe. And then from there, what we do is pick out the sort of the really core themes. It's like, okay, what are the really strong opinions that actually could become the pillars of your voice, the pillars of how you share. And from there, we take each of those and then build out really specific narratives. It's like, okay, if this is the hot take, this is the opinion, what's the context in which that's true to you? Because it will be different to everyone, right? And then why does it matter? And then essentially where we get to is, rather than having this quite sort of linear hierarchical strategy, then this is your vision, this is your mission, these are your values, that might have a place when you're starting a brand, to be fair, you know, they're useful. But when you're at the point where you want to start leading with opinions and entering conversations and shaping conversations, like snappy statements just leave you standing still. You can't go anywhere with them. So really, this is about building layered narratives that you can take to long form conversations or podcast interviews or LinkedIn that really give you the opportunity to actually express your voice in a way that is really spacious and open and freeing, because there's ebb and flow and room to go, but it still has this home, this sort of, I call it more like I call it a stackable positioning ecosystem. You've sort of got the one concept that you want to be known for, and then these ideas and opinions and narratives that sit around and layer over that. And it looks a bit more like a spider's web, I guess. And what this does is just give you the freedom to sort of say, actually, I can go over here and talk about this thing over here, which might feel seemingly unrelated, but it ladders down through that thought, that narrative and this opinion. And it goes back to sort of my core positioning concept. And it means that you have the space to kind of really grow and evolve your thinking for yourself, because that's kind of my beef with a lot of brand strategies, is that they're just really static and they don't give you as an individual space to grow because they're so fixed in a moment in time, but also allows you to join ever evolving conversations. And it also means, back to the topic of this, that because those narratives come and those opinions come from such a deep place inside you, they're so true to you and your lived experience, that AI is not going to copy them. They're not going to be spat out of a chat somewhere. And it also means that if you do then put that stuff into AI, you're feeding it with really rich information that is very bespoke to you. So it gives you a much better chance of actually using AI more effectively at the other side.
I love your process of breaking it down to that individual values of what that person is really doing, what they're doing, then putting it into like a process that helps them really be clear on what that is, because it is a challenge, because we are so time poor most of the time, and we want to find tools and strategies to make that an easy process. But having your own voice isn't really what that's about, isn't it? It's about making sure that you're true to your core values, and that's really you giving them the space to be able to do that. So by your process, that sounds a really great flow to be able to get started with, to understand, because we are taught when we start to join accelerators or join these support systems, which are set up to help support female founders, that you've got to have this standard structures of what you were used to within those kind of corporate environments. What is your values, your mission statement? What is it that you're bringing across when you're going for pitching or you're going for any sort of investment as well? But are you really being a thought leader? Are you being a change maker? Are you being that person that's making an impact? So I think that that's not what AI can do. You're able to help people do that by asking them more context and more questions. Maybe an AI tool wouldn't be able to pull that out. So that's a little bit of your human aspect that you're bringing in to bring out more humanness in other people, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, and do that.
I had this really funny story this week with a client who, and all of my clients are either multifaceted in that they have just opinions and just interests coming out in everywhere, and they want to sort of try and incorporate that, or they do one thing but they weave multiple modalities into it, perhaps, or they do just have loads of different revenue streams, some of which seem to work together and others which don't. So the context through which I'm sharing all these stories is always going to be through that lens. But I spoke to someone this week and she cracked me up because she was saying that she'd tried to take all of this to AI and ChatGPT and just say, these are all the things I do. Can you find the themes? And she said it froze. She said, I broke AI because it was too complex for her.
I love that.
For her AI thing to do. And it just made me laugh so much because, of course, because we are complex and we are individual. And yes, AI can identify themes and sometimes that can be really useful. And I use AI for that sort of thing at times. But there is this human side, which is so entrenched in our identity and how we perceive ourselves, that no AI model could ever try and interpret that for you. It's just not got the depth or the...
It's our lived experiences, right? It's what we've done. It's our lived experiences. It's our past. It's our history. It's our interactions. It's our emotional, physical life and experience around us that helps to frame that.
And it's also the relationships and how we pick up on that with each other. So much of my work is looking at a client and saying, you said that, but I don't think you believe that, do you? And actually challenging them on that side of things, because that's where the depth comes from. And, that's also something that an interface is never going to be able to do.
When it comes to then businesses starting to create a voice for themselves as well, how do they go about doing that? If they've got multifaceted, they've got to find a way to promote and talk about what it is that they're doing. Is that about creating some guidelines for themselves and then following those guidelines? How would you structure it with your own voice in that way?
So I would say, I think there's a really important distinction here to make. There's a difference between your tone of voice and your brand voice, or your real voice, I guess. And your tone of voice is the specific language you use. It's the pacing. It's, are you humorous? Are you soulful? Are you serious? Are you, there's all of that kind of thing. It's how do you present? Do you use short, sharp headings? Are you more long form? That's the tone of voice document. And so there is absolutely a place for that kind of work. Often when you are growing and perhaps beginning to outsource content creation to an agency or to someone else, then that's really useful. When it's just you need to focus on the other kind of voice, and that is your and how you enter conversations and what conversations you enter and what you bring to those conversations and what your takes on things are. And so here it's really about identifying central themes. This is where everything starts. So, you might have a photography gig over here. You might be doing accounting over there. You might be doing something else over here. And what so many of my clients say to me is, I don't know how to introduce myself. And that straight away is such an emotional block, because immediately you don't have that voice then, because you don't even know how to say, hi, who I am, and this is what I do, which in business is like the most fundamental part of networking and growing, isn't it? So straight away, a lot of my clients feel really trapped, I get, almost in themselves. Many people approach this like it's a marketing problem. Oh, I just need to sort of nail my elevator pitch or work on that. And it's not a marketing problem. Really, it's an identity problem. But we're entering into the realm of identity here. And really, that's where we have to start. So through the process, it's about identifying what the real themes are that run through everything. And, I can use myself as an example. I call myself a sense maker. I put the word brand in front of it because that's generally the space in which I earn money and a living, but I don't think I need to. And I work really intimately with clients I work with. It's really high touch. It's a really in-depth thought partnership. I also facilitate communication challenges in bigger organizations across departments. And then I'm doing very different work, but essentially what I'm sense making. I'm taking all the information in and I'm presenting it back to them. And I also teach in universities. Again, it's a very different thing, but I'm helping those students to make sense of the brands and the businesses that they're building. So for me, I introduce myself as a sense maker, and then the rest of it just sits underneath. And so that's kind of one piece of it. The voice part and the opinions is almost like the how you do that then. And so there are various different beliefs that underpin why I do things the way I do. And this might not sit right with your audience, but one of the things that I really believe is that ideas and intuition should override analysis and data in the work I do every time. For a lot of the stuff that we've talked about now, if you lead with data, then you're not letting your truth come out. You're interpreting that from someone else's. But also that, mainstream messaging doesn't align with other people. With mainstream messaging often doesn't work for people like us. We've talked about how it sort of blocks you in, it's static. Those are quite strong opinions that in my space could be considered a bit contrarian, but it's all part of shaping my voice. So really, when I talk about opinions and voice, it's those opinions. It's what are the beliefs that sort of form and inform the way you work that you would be willing to defend.
I love it because it's almost like, it's like conversation starters that allow, once you've got your own voice, it's allowing the conversation to start. And that's what we want to do in the online space, is to start conversations.
Absolutely. And another way that I sorry.
No. There's a bit of a delay.
As a creator, I used to spend hours re-recording voiceovers to get the perfect tone. But finding reliable voice talent, booking studio time, and editing takes forever, and it can break the bank. That's why I recommend 11 Labs. It generates ultra-realistic AI voices and even clones your own, all in seconds. With natural-sounding speech, multilingual support, and seamless text-to-speech conversion, 11 Labs powers podcasts, audiobooks, training modules, and more. No mic required. Ready to level up your audio? Try it free today at allmylink.me/TC11labs and bring your scripts to life with 11 Labs.
Another scenario I often use with clients is that you might sort of say, oh, I'm a facilitator. I work with organizations. I'm a I do personal brand for multifaceted leaders, and I'm a lecturer in universities. But really, I'm in the work. The work I do is an identity. And straight away, like what you do, no one's interested in that. It's like, tell me about the identity stuff. And this is really, and you're exactly right. When you start talking about conversation, which is really what we're trying to do here, isn't it? It's about having real life conversations. That's where your voice comes through. And that's the really powerful piece.
Do you find that there's a skills gap that's missing with what people have implemented using tools now, that they're not able to communicate as effectively because they're doing it either through texting or through emails or through even our voice notes? An impression on that? Is there a communication challenge that you're finding? Maybe it's across generations as well, around people and how they're able to articulate themselves, because
that's an interesting question. I tend to work with women who are in their 40s, my age, generally, not always, but generally, and typically are at a point where, or have grown up talking versus using kind of messaging apps and things like that. Obviously, we're very fluent in it now and it's part of our everyday life, but talking, having conversations has been a huge part of figuring ourselves out. But the block is not necessarily in the channel or the specific tech, it's the scenario in which that tech is implemented. So they can chat away on voice notes and send probably really deep and meaningful, interesting messages to friends, but layer work over it, and suddenly it's this is a very professional email, so I need to look and sound and speak a certain way, and the vanilla curtain just sort of comes down over the top of it. So there's a real unlearning that needs to happen. So it's not specifically the tech, it's the context in which the tech is applied. When I work with younger clients, I definitely notice that the free-flowing conversation really requires some digging, for sure. And actually, the responses are often quite, I don't want to say curated, but almost like considered, rather than just sort of allowing the stream of consciousness to sort of flow. I would say it's interesting. I'd never really considered that before.
Yeah. So we're seeing this in the workplaces with the changing of demographics, where we've got a generation that are leaving the workforce that only know how to communicate, and they communicate well. We've got ones that are like in that mid-range that are maybe moving into being leadership or have been in that kind of leadership for just a short period of time, but they're now working with those two generations, ones that only communicate via messaging apps or technology, ones that only want to communicate face to face or want to be in a room, that understand that being around people make a difference and make an impact, and then ones that don't, only want to reply back via a message. And then you're right, there's the people in the middle that understand both of those and have to and they're the leaders and they've got to try and navigate both of those spaces. And I think as business leaders now, as we are formulating a team around us and trying to navigate that as well, communication is a skill that can be trained and taught, but we need to use it and we need to hone it. And I suppose that's where your branding and finding our own voice comes into that as well, the strategy around that.
And I think when you talk about communication being a skill, it's communication, whether it's speaking and having conversations, whether it is writing, whether it is creating content for social or wherever, it's a skill and you have to hone it. And I think the danger that we find ourselves in is that with the introduction of tools like ChatGPT and Claude, and I use both of them, so I'm not I'm not hating on them at all, but we outsource the wrong things to them. And I think, they are content creation tools, or they can be content creation tools. They are not content creators. And I think a lot of people treat them as if they are just the creators and trust that what they're delivering, spinning out, spewing back is going to do the job. And there's the double-sided sword of that, which is one, that the content is a bit meh and it's not going to connect and it's not going to make you stand out and it's not going to feel relevant to your audience. But the other side is that you never learn, or you forget how to do those things, how to communicate, how to write. There's this cognitive atrophy that we are losing the sort of the ability to communicate effectively and to challenge ourselves to do that thing. This is what enabled the human race to evolve, is this ability to communicate and connect on a verbal, non-verbal level that we are handing over and just surrendering and giving up. And I mean, there are so many business reasons, which I'm sure we don't need to list here, that your audience will be aware of why that's a really bad idea. But it's the human level of it as well that gets me. I'm like, no, come on, guys. This is the best bit of being a person. It's the best bit of being human, is that we have this ability to connect with each other and communicate with each other. And why are we outsourcing that to a machine when that's the core of who we are and what we are?
We've evolved through storytelling as passing stories and tales down through
Yeah.
generations. And as we are now telling our stories on social media, either using AI to help generate those stories or using just our own tone of voice, is this how we're handing over communication? Is it that we're training
Who are we
AI
handing it to? I know. And,
we're not passing it down the generations, are we? What are we doing with it now?
No, we're not. And we're not. And, I am obsessed with storytelling and the theory of it and the psychology of it, the physiology of it, because it's not just something that we connect with on a mental level. When we're engaged in story, when we are connected on a really empathic level, chemicals fire off in our brains. When we connect with what someone's saying, our body sends us signals that it's safe to connect with them. If you are listening to a story and you're connecting with the storyteller, your brainwaves sync, like you're literally sync. It's mad what happens when we engage on that really deep level. It's also stories. And it goes beyond that. I also do quite a lot of work with archetypes. Archetypes are essentially patterns and traits and characteristics that are so frequently seen that Jung and many before him determined that it sort of represents the very nature of humanity. And these archetypes, these patterns, and from a character point of view, like the office idiot, he's just, the really nurturing, caring, but there are archetypal characteristics that we innately know, and we have them in ourselves and we recognize them in other people, and we are drawn to specific types of archetypes and characteristics, and you convey that through your story. And this is the level, it's not just, oh, you're saying something that people like. There's a connection that's happening on a really physiological, psychological level that we are not ever going to achieve, or rarely going to achieve, when we use tools to try and create that for us, because there is just that cutoff and that barrier that is preventing that from happening. And yeah, and like I said, there's the business side of it, which is that you just lose your audience and you don't connect with them. At best, you're unnoticed, but at worst you become irrelevant. And it's really hard to come back from irrelevant. But yeah, there's that human connection but on every stage, aren't we? In the world, we are seeing this disconnect. I mean, I've got a young daughter. Smartphone free childhood is something that is hugely on my mind, and I'm involved with for all of these same reasons. It's not just about kind of the business, oh God, am I going to generate some leads? It's like, what are we doing to our actual brains? And how are we actually changing the way that we socialize as a species,
It's
and what are the implications of that?
it's such a challenge. I just on that point of like phones to young people, and I love what Australia has done to stop social media under 16-year-olds and their real passion towards that. But I shared something on my stories yesterday, and it's when you're saying goodnight to your child, and in the room is somebody, the bullies in school that are
That
messaging
advert.
throughout the night.
Yes,
There's
I've seen that.
there's the news report that you're being targeted with, the war that's happening over here. There's the
The drug
man that
dealer in the
wants to
corner.
speak to you, the drug dealer on the corner. And it's really that when we put it into that context, it's going, right, there's all these things online that we're getting shown. And as somebody that's trying to find their own voice and find how to communicate online, we do have this challenge of like, here's my persona and here is me as the human. And we're having a generation of people that have only seen that, and how you represent yourself is online, and it's very different than offline. And that's why we see challenges within communication. We see really difficult behaviors that are happening in the school age, but also what's happening in the world, right? With these
Yeah.
adults that are seeing things
Mhm.
that they would never behave like that in real life. So as a business owner, business leader, we have a persona, we have ourself. Where does that strategy lie on finding our own voice and communicating that?
So for me, it's about opening channels. This is who you are. And I'm never going to advocate and say you have to share everything of who you are online, because that's not true. And it's as damaging as hiding away. But what you do show has to be true and has to be authentic. And like I often say, like, your business is not all of you, but it is of you. And so it's about identifying the parts of you that have informed and shaped the business, and bringing those in a really open and, authentic is such an overused word, but, sharing that with conviction and with heart, and keeping that sort of cycle of communication open, because your thoughts on things will evolve. And so this is why we start with, when I do the work, I call it this web, this sort of stackable ecosystem. I think it sits in the middle of those two things, and it creates this open channel. You have essentially, like I call it, like a living positioning concept, like the one thing really that you are known for. And that can be about what you do, but often it's not. Often it's powered by a belief or an opinion or a change you want to see. And then you have these sort of narratives that reinforce that. Outwardly, they are connected to industry, connected to what you do, but sort of inwardly, they're driven by a really powerful belief or opinion that is of your lived experience. And when I say we kind of keep this sort of open channel of communication, it's because your lived experience, it changes every day and evolves and grows. And so your thoughts and opinions around a topic might evolve. And by keeping that sort of feedback loop open, you're ensuring that at this end, when you share it, it's still on point and it's on strategy and it's relevant to the work you do in the industry and the people you're serving. But your thinking around it has the space to constantly evolve and grow. And so that's it. It's about really understanding what the themes are that connect the different areas of your business and the different things that you do, and pinpointing those into a series of sort of narratives or topics that you will talk about and you will become known for. Because ultimately, this is the goal as well, right? We're not here just to build businesses. It gets to a point where you want to stop being known for what you do and start being known for how you think, start sharing your ideas. You move beyond this idea of self-promotion. You want to start being in the business of idea promotion, because many of us start businesses because we want to change something. Yes, we want to earn a living, but really we're here because we want to create a lasting impact, maybe build a legacy. And you don't do that by only talking about how many likes you got on a social media post for someone last week. It's about how you are shaping the industry and changing the industry and driving conversations forward. So yeah, it's by kind of having a strategy that straddles, or not even a strategy, it's sort of a framework or an ecosystem almost that straddles how you want to show up online and what you want to be known for, with that like live link back to your lived experiences and what you believe and think about things. It enables you to do that in a way that feels
Yeah,
very
no,
comfortable and very spacious.
I love that. It's going back to your core values, but it's also about the flowiness of it, the movement
Yeah.
of like, our life changes and evolves, our business will change and evolve, the evolution of technology will change and evolve as well. And so everything evolves. We know that. We evolve,
Yeah.
we grow,
Yeah.
as humans. So it's about that adaptability piece, right? Being adaptable, being flexible, but being true to your core values,
Yeah,
keeping them
exactly.
at the forefront of it all. That's the authenticity piece, if I could say that correctly.
Yes,
It's the authentic.
exactly.
Yeah.
And
I
having the
used to call
courage
it
to do
being
that.
uniquely you. Yeah, the courage, that's super important as well. So being courageous in that aspect of it, because I think that's what will help people come to you, right? That's what people will come to buy from you, because I've explained it before. There's a teacher for everyone, right? Not everybody's going to be taught or understand things the same way. So it's about people will find you because they connect with you and your authentic self, right? Is that
Yeah,
it?
this is exactly it. You know, I wrote an article about this week about why like having an opinion is not an important element of your brand strategy. It is your brand strategy because there are what, upwards of 5 million small businesses, 500. I can't remember exactly what the figures are. A lot of small businesses in the UK. Many of them, because there's not that many jobs out there, right, will do the same thing and will deliver the same promises and say the same thing. But no one's going to do it in the way that you do specifically. No one's going to bring your energy or your sense of humor or your takes or your opinions to it. And that's what people buy. People buy people, we know this. But they can only buy into you as a person if you show a bit of ankle and show them who you are as a person and what you believe, and give people the opportunity to connect with you.
Yeah, and I think that word is really important there, opportunity, which again, if we now move on to like the AI tools they don't really give us that opportunity, do they? They'll give us an output of the data that they've been fed. So if we've worked on our own brand voice and our own way of communicating, can we then use AI tools to be able to help with time efficiency in that way if we've worked all of this out before?
Yeah, I think you absolutely can. And, there are so many ways to do that. And this is going to be one of my takeouts, but I'll say it now. We'll say it twice to get it in there. There is no one size fits all way of using it. So there is a lot of advice out there that says if you're writing a blog post, for example, or an email or something, write out the sort of the outline and then get ChatGPT to write it, or whichever platform you use, and then go through and edit it. And what I find personally when I do that is that I trust the AI version more than the one that I would write. And there's a confidence block there. And I think, do you know what? Maybe I haven't thought it through. Actually, this hasn't come out how I expected it to be, but maybe this one's right. And I really have to check myself but it took me a long time to realize that actually it was really knocking my confidence doing that, because I would lose track of what I wanted to say because what AI was spitting out was something different. And, there might be people that say that I was prompting it wrong. Maybe I was. But now I do it really differently. Now, if I'm writing something, it doesn't go anywhere near AI until right at the end. And I might put a piece of writing through it and basically just get it to sharpen it to and so I'll kind of say, this is it. This is the audience. This is the objective. I want you to imagine you are a editor of a branding agency or whatever it is, advertising agency. You are known for your sharp editing skills. I want you to refine this through that lens, more specific than that. And then it might come back and be like, okay, and it kind of scores me on it. And sometimes it's I disregard everything it says. And occasionally there are bits in there and I think, just good. And that's where I think it can be, for me, a really useful tool. And I don't do that with client work. I only do that with my own stuff. And that's when I think it can be useful, because sometimes once I've written it, it's sort of a big old mess in my, it's kind of done and I can't necessarily then edit it. Or I'll have to leave it for a day and then come back and reread it and edit it. And that's where the efficiency piece comes in, because it just picks up on things that I probably would pick up on, but it would take me another half an hour or an hour to do it.
Yeah, it's like stepping away from it and coming back. But that's what people used to do, right? They used to proofread, send it to the
Yeah.
second to the third editor
Yeah,
to do
yeah,
it.
exactly. And so for me, that's a really useful tool. And the way that I process and work through information is through conversation, and I work for myself and have no one on tap to have those conversations with. So quite often I use it as a sparring partner to help me work through things. And again, it's not about what it spits out, it's the questions that it then pushes back to me. And for me, that's an efficiency piece, because it stops me overthinking things. But there are lots of other people I know who find that sort of writing the outline of a piece of blog, or sort of some other things that I've done in the past, once I've written a long form piece of sort of anchor content, sort of a podcast script or a blog or something like that, I can put that back into AI and say, right, how would you divide this into 10 social media posts? And again, it just sort of breaks down what are the key quotes or something that I can take out of this and turn into a social. And again, I'm not asking it to write it for me. I'm just asking it to do the job of looking through and thinking, right, this is something that's useful to you. And I always make sure that I'm really giving a detailed audience profile. This is who I'm speaking to. This is the specific challenge that I want to speak to. This is the action that I want to come out of it. I think with all of this stuff, it's about being as specific as possible. And when you've done the work to really know your opinions and your beliefs and how you want to show up, and the other piece that we haven't kind of covered is the energy side of the voice. How, are you showing up as a big sister energy? Are you showing up as a guru who's got all the answers? All of this stuff also needs to be fed into it, because sometimes AI can get that wrong. It loves to be really authoritative. It loves to be like, this is the right answer. And so understanding how to interpret what it spits back to you through your lens is crucial. So I would say, yes, you absolutely can use these tools because they are great tools, but you need to have a really clear line on what the lenses are that you're looking at it through.
I
And
love
make sure
that.
that it's aligned.
It's about using it as a tool, just like with all things we talk about in digital, is that they are tools to help you grow
Yeah.
and develop
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
They are not a replacement for you and your business. It's the same with social media. It's a tool to help you market completely for free your
Yeah.
business. It is not the one means that you get business from. So it's the multifaceted, if you think about approach in that way as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Definitely.
like how you structured the prompting that you explained there as well. That's what we talk about in our teaching, is to be really specific and contextual and giving it enough context around what your output is and output it is that you want as part of it. So that's super important as part of that as well. Now you have your own podcast as well, Rebecca, don't you? So you have your, do you
Yes.
want to
Oh, I
share a
have a
little bit more
private
about that?
podcast. I have a private podcast. It's a little short, sweet, 3 episodes, all under 10 minutes. And really what I do in that podcast is delve into why this whole process can feel really messy, but exactly that, why, knowing what it is that connects your dots, what it is that sort of the messiness, I guess, of finding your own voice is your power, and how really to go through the process to begin unearthing it. So it's a sort of an introduction to my work, but also goes into a little bit more detail about some of the bigger thoughts, I guess, around why we find it so hard. So yeah, it's called Identity Limbo to Identity Alchemy, which is the process that I use, that I take my clients through. So yeah, it's on my website. I'm guessing we will share the link in the notes. So yes, I
Yeah,
would
the
love you to
notes.
all kind of have a listen.
Yeah, it'll be in the description in the show notes. So it's on Rebecca's website. We'll share that. It's 3 episodes that you can go through, and that will help you get your starting process with you to be able
Yeah,
to understand really what
absolutely.
those core values are, right? And
Yeah,
start to
exactly. And
hone
what
that.
values and opinions and beliefs, and just thoughts, like honing those thoughts, because this is the most kind of chaotic part of it, is thinking, where the hell do I start? And this is what, clients come to me thinking that they want clarity of message, but they don't. What they need is clarity of thought. The message is the output. The thought is where it all begins.
I love that. I'm just off of a 2-hour session where we had it's 50 founders pitching their businesses, and we had, you can imagine those amount of thoughts that have gone into that, and how within their 1 minute pitches that they had to present to us in a breakout room, where how they have to hone those conversations. And it's really about that, when if you've understand your tone of voice and understand how you speak and what your values are, when you go into those networking rooms, when you're pitching to those investors, when you're going to any sort of event, and it's the word of mouth that people find out, oh, you need to talk to this person, which is what business really is. If they know who you are, what you do, how you do it, and what your values are, it's really easy to recommend people, isn't it?
Yeah. This is such a huge part of it is what people say about you when you're not in that room, because again, coming back to how people speak, people aren't going to say, I need a brand consultant. They're going to say something like, I don't know how the hell to tell people what I do. I don't know how to market myself or position myself or whatever it is. And then they might say something else about, a way they like to work or something else. And then it might be, you need to speak to this person because, I used the example the other day of someone kind of saying, I really want to have loads of print in my house, but I get really overstimulated. I don't know how to make this work. And then someone else says, oh, you need to speak to this person because her whole thing is interior design for neurodivergent people. And then it's like, oh, okay, that's once you're kind of clear on the threads that underpin everything, people piece things together for you. But you have to get that clarity first of all, so that everyone's like, right, okay, yep, she's
And
the
I love
person.
that it's also around, people will find out about you from what other people say, but you
Yes.
should make your own opinions based upon your interaction with that person. So I'm sure you've had this experience, and I was recording a podcast yesterday about this as well. And so somebody's told you about some person and you go, well, that's not really my experience with that person. I've formulated my own ideas, and it's because maybe how they've communicated is different in alignment with what that person's values are. And that's okay, because there's people
Mm-hmm.
for everyone. So as long as you're core to who you are and what your
Yeah.
values are,
Because the other
that's
side
all
of
right.
that is, if you do multiple things, for example, you might be in one networking space and say, I do this, and then be in another networking space. And if you don't have the language to kind of connect everything you do, you start talking about something else over here. And then that's confusing, because when there's the third room that both those people are in, no, that's not her. And then that confuses people.
No.
So yeah, find the thread.
I understand that completely, because of the different areas of the business. You have to present yourself very differently. So it does make a lot of sense. And I love that you help business leaders really work that out and really streamline what their value and their voice and their impact can be, and how they're communicating it across. So I love that. So let's share 3 top tips that what people can use to be able to kind of leverage what they've got, and maybe that AI challenges as well as part of it. What can you share with people to take away today?
So I think a lot of my top threes we've covered. So from an AI specific point of view, just remember that it's a tool. It's not a creator. It's there to help you find efficiencies. You need to do the work to understand where you need those efficiencies, and also understand where you might succumb to trusting AI more than yourself. So for me, I know that there are I guess not insecurities, but whatever it is, I'm like, I know where I'm likely to surrender, to give over to, oh my God, what's the word I'm looking for? To trust AI more than I trust myself. And so I have to be really mindful of that. So I think that's a really important piece. I would say number 2 is that find the threads that really underpin everything you do, and lead with those as much as you lead with what you do, because that's what people remember. They always say people don't remember what you do. They remember how you've made them feel. And it's your beliefs and your opinions and your thoughts that create that impact. So find the thread that sits underneath them. And the third is, that, I guess, acknowledge that this isn't a marketing challenge. If it really, it comes down to, it's that words versus thought thing, you know. It's really looking into, it's an identity piece. It's looking into actually what you want to be known for and really thinking about what is it? What's the thing that I want people to say about me? And really pursuing that with relentless courage and belief, which can be hard, but yeah, that's it, because there's only one you, right? And that's who people want to know.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you so much, Rebecca. It's been such a great conversation, us talking and demythicizing, that's not a word, but demything everything that's
Demystifying.
Demystifying, that's the word, to communicate with AI more effectively. And it just goes back to being more human, right? This is what I talk about as part of technology coaching. We should be more human in the world of AI and technology. It's what makes us stand out in this world of tech. So be true to yourself. And if you're looking to find out more around what Rebecca does, all of her links will be in the description and the show notes. It's Block and Rose is the name of the company. Go and start that conversation with Rebecca. Go and start to be in that discovery, curiosity state of mind to really start to work out what your voice is, model what everyone else does, work out who you are, get down to that core values, go through her process and help you work out so that you can stand out in your industry as a business leader.
This is it.
That's it. So thank you so much, Rebecca. It's great to have you on, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you. I'll see you soon.
Thanks for listening to Digital Dominators. I hope today's episode gave you something practical, or at least a bit of a boost to keep things going in this mad digital world. If you're enjoying the podcast, hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming up. There's loads more good stuff on the way and some brilliant guests lined up too. And if you fancy going a bit deeper, come and join the Digital Dominators community. It's totally free and it's where I share bonus trainings, podcast extras and tools to help you build confidence with your digital skills. You'll also get access to my social media prompt calendar so you can finally stop staring at that blank screen wondering what to post. Just head to technologycoachingonline.com/digital dominators to get started. Alright, that's it from me just now. Stay curious, keep showing up, and I'll catch you in the next one.